Okay, my name's Stu Jones and I'm doing a little video here today. I've been planning this video for some time now. It's a video about my boxing career, and it's a career that some of you will know me, who know me from Wales, will know who I am and know about my boxing background. Others that don't know me won't know so much, because I chose all them years ago when I had all them fights, which I'll tell you about at the end, but I chose not to put them fights on YouTube. I chose not to put them fights on Facebook, because I wasn't travelling from one country to another, from one end to the other, fighting the best in the business for likes on Facebook, for likes on YouTube, for likes on Twitter. I was fighting them fights, travelling that country and fighting them fights because I love the scrap, and this is my story. Okay then, I'll tell you where it all started. So it all started back in a little town in Anglesey called Holyhead. Holyhead's a town that's well known for its fighting pedigree. It's bred some very, very good boxers and fighters, bare knuckle as well. And in this story I'm going to talk about just gloved boxing, but I have experienced bare knuckle, I've experienced no rules fighting, but this story is just about my gloved boxing. And it all started back when I was a young lad in Red Dragon ABC. Red Dragon ABC was the only boxing club in Holyhead back in them days, and it was renowned for being one of the best in North Wales, if not all of Wales. It had some good Welsh champions, very good fighters, and on this story I'm going to tell you all about it. So I'm going to talk now about my first time being tested in the amateur world. So I'd done a few fights for Red Dragon. I was only a young lad, and then the first test I had really was against a lad from Dyffryn ABC, Colwyn Bay, called Sean Punter. Now Sean Punter everyone knew him in our area when we were younger as quite a fierce fighter, and that was the first time I boxed with fear in my body, because I seen the size of him for one, but I knew he is a destructive fighter, and he was a big lad. So I said to Bob McCoy, get him on the scales. That was my way of getting him out, getting my claws to get out of that fight, because I was scared. And anyway, he weighed on the scales and he was actually lighter than me, even though he was bigger than me, he was lighter than me. So anyway, I boxed him and I ended up beating him. I won him on points in the Railway Club on my home show. First time I boxed home, and I won him, but he disputed the decision. And then 2 weeks after that, I boxed him on his home show in Arias Park in Colwyn Bay, and I won him again on points, and he disputed that as well. But at the end of the day, I don't make the decisions, I won the fight. It's a close fight. All that matters is the result. It's only the result that people remember. So now I'm going to talk about, now after that fight, I was still undefeated then, and I was winning everyone that was coming in front of me. And this story ain't going to be all about wins, because there was losses, but at that time I was winning everyone that was going in front of me. As a young kid, I was breaking a note, I was doing everything. And then, so I've gone from being unbeaten to facing a lad on another home show in Holyhead called Jack O'Connell. Now Jack O'Connell came from Wigan. Now he's a very tall, rangy fighter, but I was undefeated, and I had the attitude back then when I was a young kid that no one can beat me, and that's a silly attitude to have, because you become complacent. And I went into that fight, I'm not making excuses, but I went into that fight missing 1 or 2 training sessions a week, because I thought no one can beat me, because I was beating everyone in Wales. But the thing is, that was just in Wales. So Jack came from Wigan, and I'm not lying now, he absolutely boxed my head off. And that's the first time I tasted defeat. And not only did I taste defeat, but my mother and my stepdad were there watching me. That's the first time they seen me fight, and I was excited, I was proud to have them there, and I got my head boxed off. And that affected me so much that I took a 2-year break from boxing, because I couldn't handle walking from the back into the crowd who had all come there, because although they come to see the juniors because it's their family, but it's mainly the men not mainly come to see the seniors, because they know that a senior is where the fight's going to be. But there was no fight with me and Jack Connell, because he absolutely boxed my head off. But the thing is, I stopped boxing then, but that's when my mental health started in my life really seriously, because there was a big void in my life. I went from training every day to nothing. I went from being someone that everyone wanted to be around to being someone that people walked past in the street, and that was something I couldn't deal with. But the only way I could deal with it was to carry on fighting, but not in the ring, but fighting in the clubs, in the streets. And I was getting in trouble, and I was at a young age and I was getting in trouble. And the reason I went back to boxing was because when I was sat in a cell once after I had hit someone in a nightclub, which I'm not proud of, I'm not justifying that, But a policeman said to me, he said, Stewie, you need to get back into boxing. Because if you don't get back into boxing, there's only one place you're going, and that's jail. And I don't want that. Okay, so I spoke about policeman telling me, give me an ultimatum. It's either back to boxing, take up boxing again, or I'll end up, there's only one place I'll end up, and I didn't want to end up in that place. So I thought, I was using my boxing skills on the streets, which is no good. It's no good really, it's not fair. It's not where I wanted to be. So I went back into boxing, but this time I left the amateurs and I went into the underworld boxing. And back then, boxing in the underworld was different to what it is now. So now it was still white collared and unlicensed and things like that. But the difference is, back then they were schooled boxers. They went from the amateurs. They didn't go straight to a white collar gym, straight into a ring on a 6-week crash course. They were lads that had done boxing for years. And the thing is, I made a bit of my name for myself in that world of boxing. I made a big name for myself. And the thing is, I was boxing people that were the big name in boxing at the time. I was boxing them and I was winning them. So if you think about it now, I was travelling the country fighting for the sort of southern northwest area title and winning it. In the underworld boxing, I won 3 Welsh titles with 3 different organisations at 3 different weights. So that's some achievement. But what I'm going to talk about next is, so that's a good part, but what I want to talk about next is the downside to boxing, the downside to taking fights that you're not training for. So I'm going to talk to you now about 2011. 2011 for me was the best year in my life, because Sophie, my daughter, was born, but it's the worst year in my boxing career. So in 2011 I had 5 fights and I won 1. And that wasn't due to my skill, that wasn't due to anything. I was just unfit. So I was taking boxing fights and I was doing the boxing fights unfit, untrained, no desire to win, no hope to win, nothing in my belly. I was empty. How can you win a boxing fight against number 1 in your division if you are turning up untrained? And I was taking quite a few people to these fights, and I was taking them there to watch me box. And not only were they watching me boxing, they were paying good money to watch me boxing. So I feel like I let them down, to be honest with you. And I remember one day, the turning point in my career was after one of my fights in Liverpool. We were driving home, and there was a car full of us, and there was some more cars behind us. And I remember looking at my partner at the time, my ex-partner, and she just looked at me and said, "You're an embarrassment." And that was the turning point where it went from 5 fights in that year with only one win. Especially with the background I'd had with all them wins in the past, I'd gone from 5 fights to 1 win in a year, and that was terrible. When she looked at me straight in the face and she said, "You're an embarrassment," I thought, I'm not done with boxing yet. There's more to come, and I'll tell you more in this story in a minute. So the next part of the story I want to talk about is something I wasn't going to mention in the story really, but I think it's quite significant. So I've just told you the downside of my career. 4 fights lost, 1 fight won in 1 year. That's terrible from the background I came from. That was because there was no desire, no will, no love, no courage in my body. I was empty. But I'm not making this an excuse, but I wasn't empty because I didn't want to box. I was empty because I was struggling mentally. Now, mental health has been in my life for many years. It's a well-known fact for people that know me, a well-known fact. And the thing is, my mental health got so severe that I've spent many admissions in hospital due to mental health. And I'm not going to talk about it much, but one thing I am going to say is the power of boxing in my life. So although I lost them fights with no desire, no will, no hope, no courage, you might think I was over the hill, didn't want to box again, didn't love boxing anymore, but it's quite the opposite. See, them losses hurt me. And this isn't why I end up in hospital, but the one thing I will say about boxing in my life, every time I've been admitted to hospital, I've been at the bottom thinking I'm low. Lord, please take me. I've said it many times on my hands and knees in hospital. Lord, if you love me, please take me. I can't cope anymore. And I've said it many times. But the thing you learn about the Lord is it's not on your terms, it's on his terms. And he knew that I was going to prosper. And the thing is, every time I was in hospital, the one common thing that got me going every time was I'd start talking to someone on the unit about boxing, and then I'd start talking to 2 people about boxing, 3 people were asking me, people were asking to see pictures of my boxing, and that relit a fire in my belly. And that would go from me talking about it to me shadow boxing in my room, me doing press-ups, sit-ups, simple things, and that would go from my bedroom to the exercise garden. I'd be running laps, I'd be shadow boxing, and everyone would be watching me. I didn't do it for their attention. I'd done it because that was getting me better. And believe you me, I was out of them hospitals a lot faster than I would have been if I didn't have boxing in my life. Now, boxing saved my life. And another thing I want to talk about now, so there's 2 negatives now. I'm going to start talking about the positives now. So it's not all negative in my career. So I came back, I made the comeback from boxing. I was in hospital on a Thursday. I got discharged on a Thursday after a 6-month stay. I got discharged on a Thursday. I was in the ring on a Saturday in Liverpool, my comeback fight, and I thought, if I don't win this fight now, my career is over. I'm putting it all on the line here now. And it was against a journeyman, a very tough journeyman called Will Cairns from, I don't know where he's from actually. But he's a very tough journeyman back in the days when I was boxing. And the thing is, 2 days before that fight, I finished training and I damaged my wrist. So I went into that fight not only thinking, have I still got it? Have I still got what it takes, or have I lost my tools? Everything I've worked for, I think I've lost. And that doubt was there. Not only that, but I boxed him with one hand, my weak hand, my jabbing hand. But you know what? I won every round because the desire was back in my belly. The fire was back burning like a furnace in my belly. Because I love boxing and boxing loved me, and I was prospering again. Okay, so the desire is back in my life. I'm starting back on winning ways, and I'm loving life again. I'm loving boxing again, and people are loving me again. So the thing is about boxing, when you're winning, everyone wants to be your friend. When you're losing, no one wants to know you. And that's a tough part of boxing, but it's the truth. It's a hard part of boxing to deal with. So I was back on winning ways. I came back to a win against Will Cairns. Okay, he might not be the best fighter in Britain, but he was a tough fighter. It was a good test for the comeback fight. That year I went on to have 6 more fights. I had 7 fights in that 1 year. I won all 7 fights with ease. It wasn't even a test, because the hunger was back, the desire was back, everything I learned was back in my life, and I was loving boxing again. So I'm going to talk to you now. So I'm going to tell you 2 people now in my whole life that are my heroes in boxing. One of them is Jack Dempsey from the early years. The other one is Ricky the Hitman Hatton. Now, Ricky the Hitman Hatton to me was the great boxer. I tried to style myself on his fighting, but I was too tall, he was too short, I couldn't do his style. But what I'm going to tell you now is, when you think you're down, when you think you're out and you've got nothing left to give, I've just told you a story about 4 losses and one win. I've told you 7 wins coming back. I then had the text of someone saying, do you want to go to Ricky Hatton's gym for a trial to turn professional? So I bounced back from the lowest of the low in boxing to wins, to having a trial in my hero's gym. Now, I couldn't believe it. There was 2 people that made pro offers to me, professional boxing offers. One was Ricky the Hitman Hatton, and the other one was Gary Booth Senior, both who worked Ricky Hatton's corner in Ricky Hatton's career. So they were both very well known promoters, and they both wanted to take me. So I went for the trial there. So I went for the trial in both of them, and they both offered me a chance to turn pro with them. They both offered me a chance to turn pro in boxing, and I took that chance. I went to Ricky Hatton's gym, and I boxed in that gym for quite a long time. My time in Manchester was good. I was fighting, I was training, I was sparring people that were the biggest prospects in boxing, and not once did I leave that ring and think, I'm out my depth here. Not once did I leave that gym and think, I haven't got what it takes. Every time I left that gym after training there, I thought, I can do this. I've got boxing at my feet here, and I can do not whatever I want, I don't mean that, but in the world of boxing, I can make it. And the thing is, these people were telling me this as well. It wasn't only me thinking it. I was being told by these big names in boxing. I was sparring Anthony Crawler's former opponent with ease. He had to stop the sparring. I had the video of it. He had to stop the sparring because, I don't mean it's disrespectful to him, but because I was so dominant in the sparring, and that's Anthony Crawler's former opponent. I was so dominant, he had to stop the sparring. I sparred some big names and I held my own. But the thing is, with professional boxing in my life, it was a slow world and everything was on a slow burner. Come here for this, we'll do that. I was going there for a long time and nothing was happening. It was, you got to do this, you got to do that. I was ready, and I said one day, I said, I'm going back into the underworld boxing. And he said, don't do that, don't cut your career short, man. That's what he said to me, don't cut your career short, don't be stupid. But the thing is with me, I loved the scrap so much that I couldn't wait for these months, for the next time I entered the ring. I couldn't wait for whatever. I wanted the scrap, and I was offered the scrap, and Like Gary Booth said to me, if you take that fight, you're out of my gym. And you know what? I thought, I'll take the fight. He's not going to find out. He won't know. I live in Wales. He lives in Manchester. How's he going to know? Mobile phones, you know what I mean? He seen it on Facebook about an hour after I had the fight, and he kicked me out of the gym. So my time in Manchester was good. It was a long time in Manchester in the pro. It was a long time in the pro gyms, professional boxing. It was a long time. What I'm saying is the career was cut short because of my eagerness to get in the ring, because I loved the scrap so much. And the fact that I loved the scrap so much cost me probably cost me everything in boxing, because I truly believe I could have gone quite high in professional boxing. But you learn from these mistakes, and the thing is, I carried on then. So I carried on in the underworld boxing, and I carried on fighting after fight after fight after fight. But the thing is, I had learned so much in these gyms in my time in Manchester with the pros. I'd learned so much with the pros in Manchester in the gyms, that when I was fighting these people on the underground boxing, it was with ease. And I'm not just saying that bigging myself up, but it was with ease. So I was cruising past these people, and I made a bigger name for myself than I already had in that world. And like I said, everyone wanted to be my friend. Everybody wanted to be my friend. Okay, this fight here was my final fight of my career. I'm going to tell you my record in a minute, but this is the final fight of my career, the WBU middleweight title fight. Now, this fight was a career-defining fight for me. Like I've said many times, I've bounced back from the bottom to come to the top, to be in with the pros, to be in the pro game, and then I've gone back to the underworld boxing, and this is a shot in the underworld boxing at probably one of the biggest titles there was at that time, and it was against a lad from Birkenhead, and he was a very fierce fighter. This fight didn't happen on the night of this poster, because I actually pulled out. But the reason the fight did happen after that, I pulled out for genuine reasons, but the reason the fight did happen after that is because I rang the promoter, because I was getting slated all over Facebook saying I was scared, all over social media saying I was scared. I pulled out because he would have knocked me out. And me being a proud fighting man, I didn't take well to that. So I phoned the promoter and I said, you get that fight on anytime you want, anywhere you want, and I will fight him. Anyway, the fight was on 4 weeks after the date of this poster. It happened in the middle of September in 2013. Now, this fight happened. I was scared going into the ring, I won't be honest. Another time I was scared going into the ring because he was a fierce fighter. But that fear once again made me excel to my best ability, and I boxed his head off and I won the WBU title. Now listen, I'm not saying this lightheartedly, but I'm not only the first man from Anglesey to fight for the WBU belt, I'm the first man from Anglesey to win a WBU belt. It might not be at the level I wanted, but at the end of the day, a world title is a world title at any level, and I won it, so I won a world title. So I said earlier about my record, so I boxed competitively, active fighter for 20 years. Now, I had 94 fights in that 20 years. Now that might sound like a lot of fights to you, but when you break it down over 20 years, it's not that much fights. And my record ended with 71 wins, 21 losses and 2 draws, and that record is 100% accurate, and I'm proud of that record, very proud of that record.